Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research. The Sunday Roast presents 12 Stocks for the 12 Days of Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Hello and welcome to the 12 Stocks for the 12 Days of Christmas 5 Gold Rings special. I'm Phil Carroll.
And I'm Kevin Hornsby.
So the idea of this one is pretty simple, isn't it? This is 5 stocks that didn't quite make the top 12, but we felt like we had to include them. Some of them are obviously on a gold theme, being the 5 gold rings. And I think a couple of them are certainly in the commodity space, one of them being in the lithium and the other one being in the graphite play.
That's right. I mean, basically, we had certain criteria that we placed on choosing our 12 stocks. So in general, anyway, the 3 stocks that I will talk about today, and Phil's got 2 more, fairly low cap stocks. The 3 I'm going to talk about all got caps of about 6 million. That doesn't mean we didn't have a low cap in the 12 stocks, because we did. But there was other criteria that we chose as well, such as whether they were involved with a major, whereabouts it was, and also the element that was involved, whether that be gold, copper, etc., etc. So
and how far away they are potentially from either going into production or from generating revenues. Some of them are more kind of at the beginning of the Lassonde curve, and others are further down potentially. So do you want to start off then? What's your first pick?
Yeah, the first one is actually, it was a pick from last year as well, which did extremely disappointingly, and that was Conroy Gold. Just cannot really fathom why Conroy Gold is at 14p now and a market capitalization of just over £6 million, £6.4 million, high of 48p last year. Basically, Demir Export have agreed to spend 10 million euros to ascertain or attain 57.5% of the licenses. All the licenses were transferred earlier in 2022. We're talking about a gold district of, I think, in excess of 40 kilometers long. So it already has a JORC report of 500,000 ounces of gold in ground in Clontribret, and that's without the expansion of Clontribret, which was happening actually while we visited the place last year in May. And then Clay Lake as well, where the biggest chunk of gold was ever found in Ireland was found. I think, I don't remember the number of ounces that the piece was, but it was big. So there's gold in them there hills. It seems to be that news has been slow. We haven't had many assays last year, but lots of drilling has occurred. So, I think this year you're going to see a lot of information come out about these gold districts. And really, it's laughable. The price of it now is absolutely laughable, at 6 million or 6.4 million pounds as a market capitalization, when another company has agreed to spend in excess of 8 million pounds to just get 57.5% of that asset. It's beyond
it is
belief,
bizarre,
really.
and it is bizarre. And as you say, like, ultimately, they've made great progress, in the last year. When you look at what they've achieved, obviously the JV, as you mentioned, with Demir Export, that's now fully established. They've received the cash payment of 1 million euros, I think, which came in March 2022. Potentially they can earn in more, can't they, by moving over that expenditure, I think over 4.5 million euros, which will then give them an extra 25% interest in each project. They've got 3 new prospecting licenses in the Longford Down Massif. They were granted to Conroy, and I think the intention is to transfer those licenses into the JV in due course. And exploration at Clontribret and elsewhere in the Longford has continued with excellent results achieved. So the question is, as you say, why are they in a position now, a year down the line, well into that JV, where the share price just hasn't reacted to that news with a major?
I don't have an answer for you. It's bizarre.
It is bizarre. So
it is truly bizarre, and I mean, the shares themselves are pretty tightly held. They're not that easy to come by. Once buying comes in, the share price does react quite a lot.
Yeah. What do you think it needs as a catalyst? What do you think it needs as a catalyst? Do you think do you think this is punters getting impatient and saying, well, the news flow, you see a few comments of, news flow hasn't been very strong, that it feels like there's been delays, they've not been very forthcoming with results, even though we've seen some of the drill results. Drilling has kind of proven bigger areas there at Clontibret. What do you think is missing on this one?
Patience.
Yeah.
I don't think there's another word. It's patience. And I think the assays will prove that in the next 12 months and going forward. And I think probably 18 to 24 months' time, Clontibret's going to be producing gold. That's my view. We are planning a field trip there April time. So, anybody who's interested in the trip.
Would encourage some shareholders to come along, meet the board, Professor Richard Conroy and obviously Maureen Jones, and obviously see for themselves the farmhouse there and on the Clontibret and the drilling operations on site. And then obviously maybe have an evening with the board and meet Kevin, the geologist, as well. So I think that would be certainly a useful one. Maybe sometimes seeing is believing for some of these shareholders, and I think you're right. I think patience here is key and paramount, because ultimately they have a view to developing a gold mine at Clontibret and elsewhere along the trend. So it's a whole gold district, as we've talked about in the past, isn't it? Potentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll move on to one that I'll be covering. It's first one I've got is Alkemy Capital. They are effectively a lithium play. Or start from the beginning here. Basically, that they're building Europe's largest lithium refinery to supply gigafactory demand. So, any of you listeners who are obviously into the EV side of things, you will know that there is a big demand for gigafactories. So these factories that are producing obviously a massive amount of batteries for the EV markets, and obviously to supply the global demand there, because there clearly is not enough gigafactories around the world if the world wants to meet supply and for the number of EVs that are destined to be on the roads by 2030. I mean, you hear of these car manufacturers, Volkswagen, saying that they want to have solely EVs in their fleet. Then we need these gigafactories. So this is where Tees Valley Lithium come and fit into the part of the puzzle. They are basically Alkemy Capital Investments. That's the vehicle that contains 100% Tees Valley Lithium. They're listed on two exchanges, on the London Stock Exchange, ticker is ALK, and they're also on the Frankfurt Exchange, I believe, under JV2 is the ticker there. So basically, they have a market cap in circa £20 million, with only 7.2 million shares outstanding or in issue. They're a wholly owned subsidiary of ALK, as I mentioned, Tees Valley Lithium, and they're establishing Europe's largest low-carbon lithium midstream refining solution for the burgeoning EV market. Europe will have around 700 gigawatts of gigafactories by 2025, which will obviously need over 325,000 tons of lithium hydroxide and carbonate per year, and there's currently zero lithium production capacity in Europe. China controls 90% of the world's lithium hydroxide and carbonate, so really it's needed. So they've had planning permission granted. They received full planning permission from Redcar and Cleveland Borough Council to build the UK's first and Europe's largest lithium hydroxide refinery. Following an 18-month consultation period, Tees Valley Lithium is now shovel-ready and will generate over 1,000 local jobs. So really, that's the rub of it. They have got it's kind of going to become a plug-and-play chemicals park, which is Wilton International. And they'll be the first major ultra-low-carbon lithium hydroxide plant in Europe, based on this plant, which I believe is owned by a company called Semcorp Energy UK. So they've moved very well. Let's look at how from a legacy point of view, they performed. They started around they were around the 80 pence mark, weren't they, back in sort of October time, and they've moved up to the current share prices around the 280 mark. So they have moved from a kind of 7 or 8 million market cap up to the 20 million mark that they're at now. But I still think this is just the beginning of it. Obviously, that they're going to need to get the funding in order. But once that is secured, which I believe will happen sometime in 2023-24, then they should really start to come onto the radar. Really, what are your thoughts on Alkemy?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read a lot of the stuff. Again, we were and ahhing about whether we should include this in the top 12. And finally, we decided no. I suppose the no or the negative is the lack of funding at this moment in time, even though it's a good chance that it's going to happen, I think, in 2023. I think if it does happen, and I think it's probably very likely, it's been in Parliament, it's all sorts of good things have happened.
Yeah.
Then the potential upside, then based on the modular form that they're going into, sort of one train of producing this lithium and then the second and the third, it gives them absolutely huge upside, like really potential. I think there has been Shard Capital has put out a couple of notes on this, and I think the numbers is like 1,200 pence or £12 a share, and it's currently £2.80, as you say, or 2.75 or thereabouts. The interesting thing from a green perspective also is that they're going to be hooked up and linked up to the wind farm that is off the coast there,
or Dogger and things like that. Yeah.
I mean, other thing is, I think potentially it's got a lot going for it. Will the UK actually get its finger out and allow this all to happen in the right time? That is the $1 million question, isn't it?
But I mean, they're rapidly changing. The UK government's rapidly changing its attitude towards these, the commodities. Like we've talked about the met coal, the coking coal plant that's going to be up in Cumbria. We've talked about them. Just announced last week was that they're going to set up the biggest wind farm again in Bristol to supply power to something like 120,000 homes, which is going to be one of the biggest in Europe. So, there's definitely a sea change in attitude towards them. And as you say, from an ESG perspective, the whole of this Wilton plant or site is going to be pretty much powered by renewable energy sources, wind, solar, etc. So it's really good. They have agreed a 30-year lease, TVL and Semcorp. So that's really good news. That came in around, I think, 20th of December. That was very good news just before Christmas. And there's also talks of them being in feedstock talks for the spodumene concentrates, which will be the feedstock. Don't forget that actually, they feed into the plant, into this plug and play plant.
Yeah, they need the feedstock basically to create the lithium hydroxide, and then the lithium hydroxide then goes off to be part of the battery, obviously, that is
so
required.
Very, very compelling investment. But as I say, I mean, obviously the downside is that they have risen from the 80p's. They've done very well of late, but obviously still a very low market cap. And the other downside is, are they going to get funding? No one knows for sure. But if they do, it certainly looks like everything's lining up with the leases and, everything being agreed. Obviously, they've got the agreement in place. Permission was granted to build it. So they've got the planning permission. They've got the long-term lease. Surely now they just need the funding. As
a final kicker, 7-point-something million shares in issue is never a bad thing, in terms of the amount of shares that are held by individuals or tightly. Obviously, the number of shares doesn't matter. It's really how tightly they are held. But I think these are fairly tightly held as well, because people can see the potential. Okay, so the next one I'm going to go on to now is Blencowe Resources, Orem Cross Graphite Project in Uganda, ticker BREZ, B-R-E-Z, or E-S, sorry. They've got a 21-year mining license already granted in 2019. So this project is not waiting for anybody. It's not waiting to be, government to say it's okay to do it or anything else. It's already in place. It has a JORC standard mineral resource, 24.5 million tons at 6%, at 95 to 97% total graphite content. I mean, again, this is a bit like Alkemy. This is all EV driven, gigafactories. The stuff's going to be going off to the gigafactories wherever they may be in Europe, and providing high proportion of the graphite is also jumbo, XL, large, which is again gains a higher price for the graphite and for the ability to have the anodes. I think in the batteries is there. I think I said market cap 6.4 million. It has a few large investors. I suppose the sticking point with this is it doesn't have the finance right now to go straight into mining. But we've had many discussions with Mike, and the scenario is quite simple. That I'm pretty sure he's going to get it done. They have an agreement with a Chinese company. I think that they've shifted. I think it's £1,000 or 1,000 something anyway in weight for them to test the graphite to make sure that it's up to the standards that are required. And I think behind the scenes in this situation that things are happening, and it's going to do very well. And it's also come back again. We had an institutional investor invest at 5p. After some news that came out in the autumn, the share price went up to 5.5p again, and now it's dropped back down to 4.1p. So I think this is a great opportunity. This could be worth many, many factors of what it's actually.
Yeah, and obviously there are obviously other strategic investments, obviously, because you've got the AIM-listed Jangada Mines took a quite a significant amount in there. And obviously you've got your two existing major shareholders, one of them being Rab Capital. I think they own circa 10%, and you've got Jub Capital in there for around about 8%. So, and then they must understand the inherent value of our Orem Cross, which I think has already returned a reported NPV of about 482 million US from a fraction, right, and just a fraction of the resource. So it really is just like a postage stamp size on it. I mean, it's got the potential to be one of the largest.
2%, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, it looks very good. Obviously, they've had the additional MET test work on the Orem Cross graphite project, which was completed by one of the leading technical specialist firms, I think IMO, based in Perth. Critical to understand the quality of the end product, as we know, that can deliver it as a high-grade graphite construct. I agree. It's cheap where it is now, and obviously Rab and Jub and the other investor, Jangada Mines, also think so. They've come on board and really got behind it. So definitely one to watch for 2023.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they get some sort of finance deal to build what they need, which... Yeah, well, no, I think he's going past that, Mike. Now, I think he's basically saying no pilot plant. If he can get the back-in and a great offtake agreement for most of the graphite, with an agreement to actually build a sizable plant, I think that's what will happen in 2023. Yeah. And if that happens, this is going to go off the chart, I think.
I think the next thing in terms of that is that they're setting up the bulk sample trial, aren't they? Which is I think they're going to do 100 tons of Orem Cross composite.
That's right.
That'll be in the first half of 2023. So that's just the thing that the next sort of bit of news, I'd imagine, that will come out, gives them it's an exercise, and that will, I suppose, qualify in terms of end product delivered as concentrate. They can determine then what sort of concentrate they can deliver to market.
And I think that's delayed the market, because the market basically thinks that's a step backwards. But I actually think they've taken 2 steps forward, because what they've actually done, I think, from this process is that they will not go to a small plant. They will go to a bigger plant straight away if this is successful, which basically is going to mean that Blencowe Resources moves forward 1 or 2 years, in a heartbeat. So I actually think it's a real positive thing. But as usual, because it's being perceived as jam tomorrow, the share price has fallen back, and that's basically what's happened. But again, 6.4 million market cap for an asset like this. I don't think Blencowe would accept 6.4 million for the asset in the state that it's in, with a mining license and what they have at the minute. Not a chance.
Okay, well, moving on, I think the next one is Xtract Resources, which has been, let's just say, nothing short of a disappointment really this year, as it for many holder. It's been beaten down, despite the fact that obviously that there's been the updated mineral resource estimates for the Racecourse prospect and for the Ascot prospect, which both sit on the Bushranger copper gold project in central New South Wales, Australia. Yeah, I don't know what else to say on that really. Obviously that came out with the resource for combined which was up to about 1.1 million tons. Well, obviously for the first one. So what are your thoughts on it? I mean, we could talk a little bit later on as well about the Zambian project here, where the company also went into or concluded a joint venture agreement, providing, I think, as an initial 60% interest. Where to start on that one? I think We've also had quite a few podcasts with Colin on this one, and it beggars belief, really, doesn't it, where it's sat at the moment, and also with the Fairbride gold sales with the gold pours.
Yeah, I mean, Fairbride and the gold, it's looking like they're going to produce, north of 100 kilograms a month of gold. And I think Xtract are 23% of that pour, are they, after expenses? Yeah, I don't get it. It's another real Conroy gold situation, if you want to compare it to the same thing. You've got an asset in Australia with potentially 1.3 million tons of contained copper. The reality is there's significantly more than that, but they can't put that into the market at the minute because basically it's not justified, but it's open in many ways. I think it's going to be a project that ultimately will be mined or sold to a major. That's, I don't think there's any doubt about that in my view anyway. And we have these gold pours and we have the stuff in Zambia, and the gold pours means that this isn't going to be looking for millions of pounds now to make things go, happen, which I think the market has sort of seen that Xtract's probably going to need lots of cash and all the rest of it. I don't personally think it will, because the gold that's coming in is going to be more than sufficient to do the things they need to do. So with the current market capitalization of £16 million, I mean, what do you think? A huge asset in Australia, is it worth more than £16 million?
Yeah, I mean, you and I think so, but the market clearly has got a different opinion of that. It's like a lot of them, as you say, it's similar to Conroy in that respect, isn't it? Is that worth whatever that is? I don't know, is it 14 million or something like that for Conroy or whatever it is? But yeah,
Conroy gold is 6 million.
6 million, sorry. Yeah, I was looking at the share price, 14, and not the actual market cap. So that's even more of a. But yeah, they're producing. They're producing at Fairbride, as you say, and money's coming in. I think the disappointment was maybe that this figure, this magical 2 million ton, had been bandied around in the past, and then when the 1.3 million tons of contained copper was announced on the sort of beginning of December, then it had other ideas, really. Not to say that they won't meet that eventually. We just don't know. But I think that there was a bit too much emphasis on that number, sadly.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, in business, what are we trying to do? I mean, we're dealing here with Colin Bird, and the reality is, do you think, and that's to you, Phil, and also the audience, do you think that Colin is a good man to try and get a deal done? Because ultimately some sort of deal will be struck with this. Xtract's not big enough, I think, in whatever way you want to look at it, to try and mine Racecourse and it's in, I mean, one of the most amazing jurisdictions. Everybody's looking for stuff in Australia because it has a premium on it, almost because of the rules, the taxation, the fact that there's a lot of knowledge there from the mining background. It's amazing, really. It's amazing that we've got a company now valued at £16 million. The doubts are basically because of people thinking, Xtract are going to either drill forever and spend all the money, or, not get a deal over the line. Simple as that. But my view, if you look at £16 million market capitalization, how much money per annum is coming in from the gold? Now, we don't know the actual figures because it's not common knowledge yet, but it will be within the next few months. And then people will start to see, I think, that market capitalization is encompassed by the gold.
Yeah, I think you have to ask yourself as well, do you think that Colin can replicate the sale? In 2009, he sold the Zambian copper nickel group Kiwara to First Quantum for 158 million, and that mine has gone on to become sort of like one of the, I think it's like the 10th largest copper gold mine in the world. It's still producing now. So that's the reality. Do you think he's going to replicate it? And if you do, and you think he can do it again, then I guess he's investable, isn't it? That's the reality of it. Is he got a proven track record? He's done it once. I think out of all the companies he's got, I'd like to think that he would be able to do that and deliver that for shareholders again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a doubt he's going to be able to do it. He's going to get value out of that some way, shape, or form, and much higher than the current market capitalization, because the majors aren't going to be even mentioning 20 million, 50 million, 100 million, whatever. There's going to be lots of notes involved. We've already chosen Galileo and AFP for African Pioneer for specific reasons. That are Colin's companies, because of the deals that he's already struck, like the deals in AFP where he will get an $80 million payment if they reach a certain amount of copper on more than one license. And that whole copper belt, we think, is just going to explode in the next year and the next couple of years, because all the majors and all the different mining companies are piling in there. Absolutely piling in there. So so there you go. Xtract number 4, another gold play. So far we've had 2 gold plays and 2 non-gold plays. So the next one is a gold play, partially a gold play and partially other things. And for me, this came to market a year ago. It has had a rough ride. Came to the market at 5p. Currently sits at 3.5p, and it's eStar Resources. EST is the ticker. Market cap 6.1 million. It's fairly tightly held, I think. Alex Walker, who's the CEO, has a lot of money in the game as well. I think he holds 11 or 12% of the company. And it has 3 main strings to it. Gold, which is, I'll come on to each one of them as we go. Gold, rare earths, which is what all of these different technologies need to create magnets and different things, and copper gold as well, but mainly copper from VMSs. So it holds 9 licenses in those 3 different mineral groups. So the first one, which has been drilled already, is the gold prospects in, and I'm going to murder these pronunciations, but Chihuly Belt. There's 3 targets. And there's 2 prospects, Apamintas and Dalny license. 3 targets in the Apamintas, high-grade gold, orogenic gold, 739 square kilometers of licenses with prospective gold. Do you know how big that is?
Is it bigger than a football field?
739 kilometers squared.
Yeah, it's big.
That is bloody big. I'd like to compare what that is to it. It has a P1, P2 resource of circa 910,000 ounces. And assays or diamond drilling has taken place on that. And if Alex was here, he'd tell you exactly the amount of meters. I think it was 1,001 meter or something like this. So we're waiting for them now to see what the results are. There's been extremely high gold grades on these. There's been artesian mining for gold in this. It is serious amount of gold in those particular situations. Then we've got the rare earth, which originally attracted me to this stock. They are 80% shareholder with 20% shareholder in the project. With the government mining company for the telluric ionic absorption clay, which basically is the same as the south of China. And China basically controls this market for the whole world, basically. So this is one of these minerals and things, resources that all the governments need, or not governments, but all the companies need. So, and the beauty of this is it's literally like digging up sand, or clay. And all you have to do is basically wash it in something not too dangerous. And, Bob's your uncle, you've got your rare earths. They have 20,000 or 19,962 tons already jorked in inverted commas. And it's $75,000 a ton. That's how much you get for it. So if you do the maths, that's $1.6 billion just on the rare earths. And actually, they've expanded their area of rare earths by 6-fold because the government basically granted them a license for a much bigger area, and they granted them the license to mine within 7 days. So do you think the Kazakhstan government wants this to work? I think they do. Like a mining license within 7 days, it was bizarre. So they were actually able to do those assays as well, or take the samples, and they're also being assayed at the minute, and they should be coming out very, very shortly. And then the other thing, which hasn't really been talked about greatly because they haven't actually done that much on it yet, even though they've done research and they've also managed to get information from the past as well, is the Rudny-Alti belt, which is a volcanic massive sulfide. You may have heard us say VMSs, which basically is where the earth crust has broken open and stuff has basically piled up. And on those VMSs, you tend to get gold, copper, zinc, lead, or many different minerals and metals are congregated in that as the gases and the stuff comes out of the earth. So again, there are many targets, 5 major drilling targets, 4 with that they know there is copper there, and that's going to happen in the first quarter of 2023. There's 1,000 million tons of ore in 58 deposits, over 803.7 kilometers squared. Again, the scale of this is huge. Alex Walker, who's the CEO, would turn around and tell you that this is like mining in Australia only in the 1970s, when basically nothing was staked out. Nobody knew anything about it. And here we have a incredibly rich mineral ground, and they basically have first move advantage to try and get the best out of it. So for me, this one, obviously, it didn't make our main list. Why didn't it make our main list? Because it's an explorer, basically. It's as simple as that. It's an explorer. There's quite a lot of risk involved. But if it pays off, this is going to blow the lights out as far as I'm concerned. East Star Resources, can East Star Resources be worth 50 million to 100 million if 1, 2, 3 of these projects happen? Even if one of them happens and it's very good, can it be worth 100 million pounds in 2023? I think it could be. I really.
What are the catalysts looking forward then into 2020, into this year? I mean, what have we got? Drill results coming in assays?
So we've got drill results from the gold, like any minute now, to be honest. We were expecting them before Christmas. And they haven't arrived, mainly because of the delays in the assay places. So it's all been done and it's waiting to come. And there's 3 separate targets there. And then you've got the rare earths, which have now been also drilled. So waiting for the results on those, and then they will be leach tested. And then after that leach testing, if it's proven that it's there in the quantity that they require, then it's game on, really. That is going to be such a simple project, because literally you dig it up, you leach it, and you get your rare earths and you sell them. So the actual capital cost in that situation could be minimal. And if that one actually happens and they're able to have great cash flow from that, you could be looking at a company that could basically fund itself in the other projects. I mean, obviously, I'm painting very rosy picture here. It's probably not going to happen quite as wonderfully as I'm describing. Yeah. But even so, I think there's a lot of gold there. If you look at the historic situation with the gold, there's going to be gold there. There is already a non-compliant JORC there for 910,000 ounces. The rare earths are there. They already have that 19,962 tons of rare earth that is confirmed, and now they have 6 or 7 times the license. I think it may even be. What do you think?
What do you think the markets? Do you think the jurisdiction? I know it's getting better, but obviously proximity to Russia and the government.
Yeah.
They've got a dubious record in terms of the laws and the policy and procedures that I don't think they're easiest to work with. I'm sure that's getting better. And
I think this is one of the things that Alex said in 2018. Kazakhstan basically introduced new mining regulations, and they were based on the Western Australia mining regulation situation completely. So the scenario is now, if you're mining in Kazakhstan, you are mining under the same legislation as in Western Australia. So why is it doing what it's doing now, which was your initial question? Kazakhstan the Ukraine war, and an uncertainty about this. But listen, Glencore are the interesting thing that we found out is that one of the Glencore guys basically lent Alex his plates when he arrived. So Alex eats off the plates from the guy in Glencore because it's a very small community. Alex lives in the country. They all live together and, they know each other. Now, there are projects all along, especially where the VMSs are, projects all along, and there are places there for them to take the ore out and take it straight to processing. So they will have no cost involved in actual producing a processing plant because the capacity there is huge. They have many processing plants. So the majors, what do you think the majors are going to be looking to do if they discover massive sulfides?
Well, the obvious thing will be to either buy the licenses or buy the company up if they can prove it up. That's the way it works.
Exactly. Buy the copper off them, or do some sort of joint venture where they just, pay for everything and get, some of the profit.
Yeah. So I've written down my targets. Scribbled them on the back of a cigarette packet. I'm sure you've done the same. So I'll reveal one and then you reveal the other and then you start with that. So we'll just go in no order, particular order. So for Alkemy, I've got 500 pence target. That means that I think in 2023 at some point it could potentially hit that £5 mark.
Okay. As you would anticipate, mine's higher. I have 800 pence.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough. No comment on that. Next one, what you going for next?
Let's go for Xtract.
Okay, I've got 3.8p.
Okay, Xtract, I believe a deal will be done in 2023 and I've got 15 pence.
Okay. Blencowe, I've got 6 pence.
Again, in 2023, I'm the ultimate optimist. I believe a deal will be done, and this will be a game changer for Brez, and I've got 12p.
Okay. Conroy Gold.
You go for it first.
22 pence.
Okay. I have the fact that I think there's going to be a lot more assays coming out, and this will prove up. I also expect by the end of 2023, we'll have an updated JORC.
This is a year, by the way. This is this year now. This isn't like 2 years.
Yeah. No. But we'll have an updated JORC by the end of this year for Clontribrit. And this will also show, and I have 40p, which is it's less than it was at the start of this year.
Okay. And then E-Star Resources.
E-Star Resources, I'm being conservative, and I'm saying 15p.
I've got 5p. I think that's quite it's good though, because it's like shows how I'm not saying I'm a pessimist, but I'm a realist, and I'm also quite cautious on a lot of these things. So and then you're probably the opposite end of the spectrum on that respect. So
yeah, absolutely. No,
you take somewhere in between there. I think we might be that might be a good between the two values, that might be a good starting point.
We're yin and yang, I think, in terms of that. But I think that's good. I mean, the scenario is that I'm looking optimistically at all of them, and that isn't necessarily going to be the case. And that's why they were called the 5 gold rings. The 5 gold rings, these guys, could be made out of solid gold, and they could be covered in a bit of gold paint, So let's see. We will cover these as we go through the year in terms of how our 5 gold rings are doing as opposed to the 12 stocks. And all the 12 stocks have been revealed now, and we will do a review of all of them on the Sunday roast on Sunday, our first Sunday roast of 2023. So we look forward to it. Here's hoping that 2023 is going to be a more optimistic year than 2022 was. Because it was dire and depressing and all the words you want to use. But, it's going to turn at some point. When that point is, seems to be being pushed further and further away. But I believe it's going to turn in 2023 at some point. When? Who knows?
Yeah. All right. Good. On that note, I think we'll wrap things up and say, speak to you soon. And thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. It's good that... since we started our podcasts on Audio Boom, we've just crossed the 100,000 barrier. So thank you very much for all of your time listening to us and listening to the CEOs that we introduced to you. So that's great. Thank you very much indeed.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.